Good morning, Berlin. I'm Amira, and I'm gonna be your host on the main stage for the next 2 days. A line about me, because we're gonna spend a lot of time together. I live between Copenhagen and Berlin, and I work as an Azure solution engineer at Microsoft. Before that, I used to build and pitch a deep tech startup of my own. So, if you raced around on 3 hours of sleep, debugged a prototype while eating a sad airport sandwich, don't worry, I've been there too. Like a lot of you, I care a lot about what it takes to build real things with real impact. So we are among friends here. Deep Tech Momentum is Europe's working summit for deep tech. The framing we like to use is an innovation marketplace. Over 2 days, founders meet their next customer, investors meet their next portfolio, and corporate gets to meet founders who are already solving the problems they thought were unsolvable. So I'm sure when we leave this event, we will all hopefully feel inspired to keep building. These 2 days come back to one thing: the demand stack for deep tech. Who buys what we build, on what terms, at what scale? To open this conversation, I'd like to bring our co-founder and CEO back to the stage. Martin will introduce our first guest and moderate. Please welcome Martin Schilling and joining him, Dr. Frank Appel.
Here. Perfect. Okay, you've seen us just talking about a demand stack for deep tech and AI in Europe, and I'm really excited to have someone here who is a perfect guest to talk about this. I want to kick us off with 2 stories that says a lot about our guest. First, the yellow van problem in 2014. Tens of thousands of diesel vans in German cities, stop and go, and the CEO of Deutsche Post had a problem. They need to cut emissions and deploy electric vans at scale. So his team starts shopping around in the country that invented the automobile. Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW. The answer always, not interesting, not now, let's not do this. So he sets out to buy a 70-person RWTH Aachen spin-out, building EV prototypes. 5 years later, we have 20,000 street scooters on the road. Story number 2, 2018, the warehouse problem. Workers unloading containers in 40-degree summer and freezing winter, attrition high, volumes even higher. So DHL goes out to hunt for robots that work in real warehouses and finds an MIT spin-out with a strange one-armed robot called Stretch. By 2020, DHL is Boston Dynamics' first commercial customer. So same instinct twice. If the market won't build it, he's just buying it. He's trained as a scientist, PhD in neurobiology at ETH Zurich, fits perfect to us here, McKinsey partner, then 15 years as CEO of Deutsche Post, longest serving CEO of any DAX company. I don't know how you keep your mental sanity with this. Today, chairman of and supervisory boards of Deutsche Telekom and RWE, external vice president of Max Planck, and his line of leadership is ask the right question at the right time. And that's exactly what we'll try to do now. Please welcome Frank Appel. So Frank, maybe we can talk about this default no. So you started shopping around for the electric vans. You got a lot of no's. So there's a bit of a risk aversion in corporates to jump to do new projects. How can you get the century of accumulated risk aversions a little bit out of the corporates?
Yeah, I think the story about the street shooter is a good example why things working and things are not working somehow. And we actually were asking automotive producers, but they didn't want to cannibalize their own products. And this is what I have seen in the companies I have worked for as well. So you have not the courage to cannibalize, and therefore you get substituted. And that's number 1. Number 2 is when we bought this company, we were just too arrogant to think that we can build an automotive company as a logistics company. That didn't work either, and we were too late in giving away the majority to, private equity or whatever investors. We had not the skills, and then we came to the point to say, should we invest another $1 billion now in batteries, or should we continue to invest in logistics? And of course, we decided for logistics. And so you can learn from that, and that's a problem corporates have, that you have to be fast and you need courage, but you have to be smart as well, and we were not smart holding on that project for too long.
So when you approach this maybe with a bit of naivety from the outside, right? So that you see German, European corporates now under immense pressure, right? Automotive, great example. And you say that you need, as a corporate, to start disrupting yourself to stay in the market. What's the systemic problem, and is there any way to overcome this, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's very challenging to disrupt your own business yourself, because you put the best people on the big scale businesses. The small businesses are always for the second class people, and that's a significant part of the problem. So I think Schumpeter is right that you have to destroy your business, but it's almost impossible for corporates. So the only way to do that is that you really create funding like Deutsche Telekom does. They have venture capital, and to invest into companies to see if they can be a new adjacency to your core in cybersecurity or IoT or in data center. Even two companies were just on stage. One investment capital went into Marvel Fusion, and from the other, RW went into Proxima Fusion. So there is money, but it's too little at the end of the day. Because it's not, our value principles are let's drive our core businesses successfully.
So, and this idea of, you said one challenge is your best people are then always often in the core and not in the adjacent businesses. You bought startups, right? So this is a way to literally, in adjacent businesses, bring in talent and become more competitive. Is this something which we should scale?
I think there are some good examples, like Deutsche Telekom is really a proven case where you have that. I think what corporates can probably do better if they commit more procurement to startups, which is also complex because if you buy them something, you have a pilot and another pilot and another pilot, and payment terms are just the same as for everybody. Liability discussions with startups, and I think where corporates can do much better than we currently do. Yeah.
Hey, let's think a bit. We love this 10x thinking, as you know, in this environment. So there is certain activity with startup procurement, right? Telecom is doing this. RWE is part of the Alpha Alliance. If we think about 10xing this, so literally we're taking the current procurement volume spent and we want to 10x it. What are the levers we can pull?
Yeah, you asked me that already before, and the longer I think, the more I think about we have to learn from other things. When we at DHL, we said, to really have more social programs running, we have to commit a certain amount voluntarily. So we said 1% of the net income will be donated to support social activities, and that has materialized now for many years. I think in the procurement world, if corporates really would say in Europe, we spend 1% of our total procurement spend just on startups, and this is not something where the regulator should come and make a law of laws, it's a voluntary self-commitment which can be reported under the sustainability report in order to prove that it's really happening. I think that could make a difference. If you just take German corporates, we probably spend $1 trillion in total. 1% would be already procurement. Would be 10 billion already. 10 billion. So that would be quite a big. I think that would be something where corporates could do better than we do. Together, have an initiative. We spend 1% of our total procurement spend for startups, including even food tech companies, because we have canteens, we can buy from them, and so on and so forth. So, we need something like that as a voluntary activity.
And what we learned is this is always important to frame it as competitiveness boosters, right? This is not a gift to startups?
No.
This is in the self-interest of the enterprise to drive competitiveness, right? That's
Yeah,
the
we
frame.
have done at DHL the same. The 1% social investment had a benefit to the company as well. Employee loves it, so we had a better employee engagement. Customers liked it. The society said, okay, this company is behaving in the right way. So you have to do it. So it's not philanthropy, neither on social nor on procurement. But we can say, let's spend 1%. Because what helps is, the problem is if I see such a conference here, I have not been very often on these conferences. And that's a part of the problem. We are too, as CEOs or chairmen, we are too far away from what's going on. Because we have so many other things to do. Even the politicians, they might come today, but they will be here for half an hour and then they go again. And that's a fundamental problem. We have to overcome our own limitations. We have to say, and maybe that's an idea for you as well, that you say, we just do that for corporate CEOs. We just invite and we bring the hottest startups just that they learn. Because I feel guilty myself. I had not enough exposure to new startups. If you dedicate a certain amount of time, let's say 1% is 2 days, if you work 200 days a year, maybe it's 2.5 days. If you just would say you dedicate 2.5 or 5 days a year, you will learn a lot and you might funnel then the ideas through. Because if somebody from the 5th layer comes and talks to you, then the CEO will never hear about it.
So this, I think, is an extremely powerful idea, right? Frank says essentially 1% of the procurement volume of the corporates being dedicated to startup and driving the competitiveness. When you think this a bit further, so what are good steps to bring this along, this initiative? Would you invite?
Yeah, as I said, we need more. I think we as senior executives spend too little time exposing ourselves what's going on. Because you have these conferences, yes. But how many corporate CEOs are today here? Probably very few. And that's, that we are responsible to expose ourselves. Well, we are not doing that. That's the reason why we need probably formats, like I suggested, that you say, just bring the hottest startups and we only invite corporate CEOs. Because I know a lot of other corporate CEOs, but we are not spending enough time with the new, latest innovation.
Very powerful idea. So then next time in DTM27 we bring Deutsche Telekom, the CEO, and RWE, and then we hope that they will find some customers here. Okay, amazing. Frank, we'll talk a little bit about leadership as well, because you have many decades of leadership experience. So what I think one thing which is very powerful, what you have shown, is endurance. So 15 years as CEO. What have you learned in year 15, which you didn't know yet in year 4?
Yeah, I think what I have learned in this year, that I thought always that leadership is important, but I have learned that leadership is the most important skill you need in anything you do. Be it an innovator, you have people around you, and the better you lead them, the more successful you will be, and that's true for any place in the world, I believe. And I didn't know that in the 5th year, but I know that now, that leadership is by far the most important and the most difficult task as well.
Can you connect this a bit to endurance? Because this is, I think, this is something relates to many investors and founders too. You need to really stay in the game for years. How did you keep your energy for 15 years? How did you continue? It's a relatively tough and intense job. So how did you endure this? I
think it's a combination of the engagement with the people, but more important, I think, I have somehow a little bit of stoic mindset. And you need that as well if you're a startup. You need to be stoic. What you can't change, you should not worry about. You should focus on the things you can change. And there are so many things happening all the time, and if you worry about that and get absorbed, the energy flows to the wrong direction. And when we had COVID, I said, we can't change COVID. What we can change is how we behave as an organization and respond to that. But the pandemic is there. Or now, if we have gas and oil shortage, and I can now argue about that we have to get the war to the end. This is not in the hands, particularly not here for the startups, but what you can really influence is, and focus on that, what you really can influence. And then you can stay on course, because you have enough challenges on your own journey already.
So you're saying focus on the controllable, right? So the variables
Yes.
you can control, that's where your mental attention needs to go.
Yeah, and don't worry too much about the rest. You can't change it.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about some rituals which you've developed over the year, yeah, so personally, sports, productivity, what kind of rituals have you done to sustain energy for so many years?
You know, there are funny things like that I wear the same thing, that I even was wearing my suit and my tie, or today I have no tie, you know, in the office, because that's a habit, and that's a positive habit. In the moment, you know, I remember when my daughter came, she was 5, and it was Saturday morning, and she said, "Dad, why you're putting a tie on? Grandma has her birthday today, and you go out for work," because she, you know, thought always when I put a tie on, I go out for work. So she reflected on that, but this is a positive habit because I didn't think about what I need to wear. I can focus. Even when we had COVID, I went every day into the office. It was only my assistant and I was wearing a suit and a tie. And then I read from a Nobel Prize laureate in literature. He said, "I don't sit at home in my pyjama or my sports suit when I write my books. I change my clothes to write a proper book." And that's the same. So you need your habits somehow. And I had one, this is one habit. The other is that I said, you know, I have to finish at 7, otherwise I will not see my family. And I kept that discipline quite hard. Because otherwise you run into problems constantly. So you need your clear positive habits to control, otherwise you run out of energy.
And you're designing this habit so that literally it drives both energy and productivity, right? That's probably...
Yes, you have to focus your energy on what counts and not by working for 15 hours a day. And you know, we had a call last week, of course you prepare these kind of things, and I asked you at 8 o'clock in the morning, do you have not to take care of your children? You said, yeah, it's a week to go until the conference, so I'm now busy. I understand that, but if that happens for a full year,
problem. Yeah.
you will be divorced very soon, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. So this putting boundaries around this is a very important topic for many founders and many leaders. Putting the boundaries around yourself to enable to sustain these many years, right? That's what you're saying. Yeah. Advice to founders. Yeah. So if one thing as a startup founder to nail to build a successful company from your perspective, what would that be?
I think I would say two. You have to be obsessed by your idea, otherwise you will never get it done. If you are not believing, everybody will experience that immediately that you don't believe in your own idea. So you have to be obsessed to the extent that you are getting even, the people say he's nuts, other people, because you have to believe in your idea. And we had that with these guys from Street Scooter. They really believe that we can make it happen. And we probably were not the smartest owner, that I said that already. So, but the people we bought were really obsessed by their idea. And they made it happen because they were obsessed by the idea. And the second is a combination with the stoic. You have to be stoic. You have to be focusing on what counts for you and not think about all the rest, because otherwise you run into problems as well.
Stoic, you said, right?
Yeah, stoic and, I was very stoic in many things, but you need at the same time obsessed by your idea. And you saw that, you know, the people were just on stage, I think they are obsessed by their idea.
Yeah, amazing. So you say focus on the one side and as well stoic on the other, yeah? If you were 32 again, you could redo it, yeah? Would you again join the corporate as a CEO, becoming a CEO, or would you found one?
Yeah, I think my advice to young people is always do what is easy for you. And for me, it's easy to lead other people, to chair a board meeting or whatever. That's easy for me, even if it's not fun, because you normally discuss the difficult stuff, but it's easy for me. So if I reflect, I would say, I have leverage in my life what is easy for me, and therefore the answer would be I probably would do it again.
Because it fits to your personal...
Yes, it fits perfectly to my personality. I probably, here are many investors. If I would have the courage to put my own house on a high debt on my house to invest, probably not, to be honest, yeah? So that's probably not my skill. My wife would say, well, you would never do that, Frank. But you have to know what is your own strength, and then you should focus on that. And here are people more who have the guts to do that, and that's the reason why they are here and not sitting in corporates.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Okay, I would love to quickly open this. So if someone has a question to Frank, we would give you a quick mic. Maybe Tim, you can quickly organize a mic so that we can do this. Here it is. Okay, great. Anyone wants to ask a question to Frank? Can be from founder perspective, corporate perspective. Any question? Your unique opportunity. Yeah, please.
Appel, you mentioned quite a number of times it's important to be stoic, to lead, to be enabled to focus. How did you become a stoic?
Yeah, this is another question. Despite I'm a neurobiologist, I can't tell you. It's probably having seen by changing my career several times, a career path. Being a scientist and moving then into the McKinsey world, knowing that if you don't perform, you're out. If you think about that too often, and having been a partner with McKinsey and found a new job, and finally being in charge for 600,000 people, I have seen that I said, okay, if I always think about what it means for 600,000 people, it doesn't work. So it's probably practicing that on a daily basis and changing. I said I have not taken risk, as an investor, and probably not would be the right person, but I have taken personal risk to move from a science path to a consultancy, and from a consultancy to a corporate job. And these jobs are very different. There's no guarantee if you are a good scientist that you are a good consultant, and if you're a good consultant, you become a good manager. But I have learned on that journey, if you focus on what really is important, then you don't get distracted. But many people think about this and that, and I said, what Mr. Trump is doing on a daily basis, why we are reading every day the news about him, because he says A, B, C, D, every day different. If we would just ignore it, we would probably go through certain crises much better.
Yep. Yep. Two more questions to Frank Appel, please.
Where's the mic?
Mike?
It's coming.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I have a question to your role as a supervisory board member, and especially because there's so much changes in the area of AI, and this topic is much more important. Do you see tendencies that there are more members in the board who have AI expertise?
Yeah, we have just hired two. We just got in the supervisory board the former CEO from GitHub and the CTO from SAP. So we just hired two, because I said, we will not, and I'm playing with Claude and all these kind of things, and then I'm amazed, what they do. I asked even Claude what might be questions I'm getting today, but it was not very meaningful, I have to say. Claude was not very good in suggesting any questions. But you need younger people who are more engaged into that, because this is a new wave, and you have to have people who are really telling you. And we and Deutsche Telekom, we just brought two. They are not very young, but they are in the late 30s and early 40s, so that's much younger than I am. So we need that. We need that mixture. Yeah, absolutely right.
You're saying with the more younger generation coming this more naturally, right? That's coming up.
Yeah, we might even get sooner or later somebody, if these startups are successful, maybe RW would have one.
You buy them and then you have them in the board. Okay, great. One more question to Frank, please.
Hi, my name is Ilan. I'm a co-founder of software startup here out of Berlin. I loved your comments around voluntary commitments to procuring from startups. And you also mentioned some might already indicate that they do that in ESG reports or so. Do you have any other place how to know who has already done voluntary commitments?
No, we have, this idea came, and as I said already, our problem as CEOs and chairmen is we are not exposed to the problem enough. And therefore our procurement organization is treating startups exactly in the same way as we treat large corporates. And that creates massive problems. You know, you have to be paid not in 90 days or 120 days. You know, you need payment straight away because otherwise you might run into financial problems. Liability questions and all these kind of things. So what I'm saying is a little response after Martin challenged me a little bit, you know, what can you do as corporates? And I say it's challenged. I thought that we need something like that. So I have not talked to anybody else about that, but I will, because I think we need that momentum. Corporates can do more. And if we really get an activity where we say corporates are committing 1% of the procurement spend, we can help startups quite a bit.
Thanks. Would love to pick your brain about this afterwards.
And maybe get a contract. One more question to Frank, please, and then we wrap it up. And last question to Frank, please.
Hey, great talk. Really enjoyed listening to it. My name is Jens Hofrichter from Lithium. So we are providing manufacturing services for next generation transceivers. And there's a lot of hype, a lot of discussion about resilience and becoming independent and resilience of the European ecosystem and of the German companies. So for Deutsche Telekom, how do you see it to become more resilient, more independent from American and also Asian manufacturers? So buying your internet backbone from Cisco, from the US, or from Huawei, from the Chinese. So what is the European answer that you see coming up?
Yeah, in the telecoms, there's no doubt it will become more US European based. You know, the politicians don't want to have Chinese technology and the networks, and therefore this is definitely an area where all telecoms companies will invest more in Europe and in the US. And interesting enough, we have still some European players which are good in that field. So that's definitely will happen. So the telecoms company will source significantly more in Europe and the US than they have done before.
All right, looking forward.
Perfect timing. Okay, so first, thank you everybody for listening. Thanks to Frank for this. I think the one key takeaway, the one key idea that Frank mentioned is a really brilliant one. We just talked about this demand stack for European deep tech. If we can together work towards this idea, 1% of the procurement volume of ideally all corporate enterprises committed to startup and innovation procurement, maybe in some kind of fast track, startup like fast track. We would love, Frank, to work with you on this and advance towards this would be a major, major impact for literally everyone in the room. I thank you for your time here with us and what a big pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, Frank Appel.
Thank you.